Welcome to Precalculus Algebra, and in this video we're going to study what's called the difference quotient. So the difference quotient is simply this expression right here. First of all, notice that it's a quotient because at the end of the day you're dividing one expression by another. Second of all, it involves a difference, which is why we call this whole thing the difference quotient. So what we want to do is, given a function, we want to evaluate the difference quotient for that function. And this is really important as it arises in topics like average velocity, and actually is a basis for the derivative in calculus algebraically. All right, let's see how to evaluate this. So let's find the difference quotient for the function f of x equals 2 minus 3x plus 4x squared. So the first thing you want to do is, well, the difference quotient, let's write that down first of all. It's f of a plus h, take away f at a, divided by h. That's the definition. This is the definition of the difference quotient. So what we want to do is we want to first find f of a plus h, and then find f of a, and then substitute those expressions into this expression. Okay, so first of all, what is f of a plus h? Well, to find that, we're going to replace x with a plus h. So a plus h here, there, and there. So we have f of a plus h is equal to, it's going to be 2 take away 3 times a plus h plus 4 times a plus h quantities squared. So now we'll go ahead and distribute the negative 3, and we'll expand out that a plus h squared. So it's going to become 2 take away 3a minus 3h, and then plus 4 times the quantity a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. Okay, finally we'll go ahead and distribute the 4. So we're looking at 2 minus 3a minus 3h plus 4a squared plus 8ah plus 4h squared. Okay, so that is f of a plus h. Now, so we're going to replace f of a plus h up there with all of this in a moment. Okay, but we also have to figure out what f of a is, so let's do that. F of a, now you just replace x with a. So it's going to become 2 minus 3a plus 4a squared, and that's it. Okay, so now we're going to substitute this expression, f of a plus h, and this expression, f of a, into the difference quotient. So let me first write it again. F of a plus h, take away f of a, all divided by h. Okay, that's going to be equal to, all right, so f of a plus h, right? Right here, I'm going to write it as 2 minus 3a minus 3h plus 4a squared plus 8ah plus 4h squared. Okay, and then take away f at a. Now all of this is f at a. Now whenever you subtract a sum or a difference, you're going to need parentheses around that quantity. So I'm going to subtract off all of this. So it's going to be minus 2 minus 3a plus 4a squared. That's the numerator, and then all divided by h. Okay, so simplifying that numerator, first thing we have to do is distribute the negative here, and then we'll be able to cancel. So we've got 2 minus 3a minus 3h plus 4a squared plus 8ah plus 4h squared minus 2 plus 3a minus 4a squared, all divided by h still. And so we're looking at, let's see, now we have some cancellation, right? The 2 and the negative 2. It's pretty fun. The negative 3a and the positive 3a. The 4a squared and the negative 4a squared. And we're left with just, we'll see what's left. The negative 3h, right? The plus 8ah. Anything else? Yeah, the plus 4h squared. All that's in the numerator, and then don't forget, you still have this h in the denominator there. Now, what we can do is factor an h out of that numerator, and then cancel it with the h down here. So this will be h times, let's see, it's going to be negative 3 plus 8a plus 4h, all divided by that h, and then those cancel, right? You have to write this as a factor before you can cancel it, and it leaves us with our answer, which is negative 3 plus 8a plus h. So we end up with negative 3 plus 8a plus h. That's our answer. Okay, so in other words, this whole difference quotient ends up at the end of the day just being negative 3 plus 8a, not plus h, but plus 4h. Let's replace that. Plus 4h. Okay, and that's our answer. Okay, so we can see how things get a little complicated. Let's try another one where we have to consider fractions as well. Okay, let's find the difference quotient for this function, f of x equals 3x over x minus 1. Okay, so we like to start off with the definition of the difference quotient. So you want to memorize this, and it's f at a plus h, take away f at a, all divided by h. Okay, that never changes. It's always the same thing. Okay, so we need to find f at a plus h, f at a, and then replace, put those into this numerator, and then simplify that expression, just like before. Okay, so let's see, what is f at a plus h? It's going to be f at a plus h is going to be, well, put an a plus h here and an a plus h there. So 3 times a plus h divided by the denominator, which is going to be a plus h take away 1. Okay, and let's simplify that. Let's write that as 3a plus 3h over a plus h take away 1. Okay, and then f of a, what do we get there? F of a is equal to, well, it's just going to be 3a divided by a minus 1. So I found that by simply replacing x with a. So 3a over a minus 1. Okay, so now it's time to create this difference quotient, right? So it's going to be f of a plus h take away f of a divided by h. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to need some room for this one, so let's go ahead and write this on another sheet of paper. So it's going to be all of this, 3a plus 3h over a plus h minus 1 right there, take away this, and then all divided by h. Okay, 3a plus 3h over a plus h minus 1. So we're looking at 3a plus 3h. I already forgot it. What was it? It was 3a plus 3h over a plus h minus 1 over a plus h minus 1, right? And then take away, what was that second part? Take away f of a, which is going to be 3a over a minus 1, and then you have to divide the whole thing by h. So it's going to be 3a over a minus 1. So 3a over a minus 1, and then all divided by h. Okay, so let's just double check this before we go on, because it's going to be kind of a long expression. So 3a plus 3h over a plus h minus 1, and then minus 3a over a minus 1 divided by h. Okay, we're good. Okay, so this is an example of what's called the complex fraction. So let's write that here. And there are multiple ways of handling this. I think the easiest way is to try to clear what I call the little denominators. So this is there's a big fraction bar here, right? But there are also small fraction bars. There's one here and there's one there. So I like to find the LCD of the small fractions. That means the LCD of these two fractions, which is just going to be a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. So once you find that LCD, you multiply the numerator and denominator of the big fraction. So I'm going to multiply that and this by the LCD. So a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. So here we go. It's going to be a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1, all divided by 1. Okay, that's for the numerator of the big fraction. And then same thing for the denominator. Now, because the denominator doesn't contain a fraction, right? I wrote this over 1 so that I can cancel in a moment. But there's no canceling to be done in the denominator because there's no fraction. So let me simply just write this expression down here. It's just going to be a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. Okay? So there's one for the numerator and one for the denominator, and the one in the numerator has been written over 1. Okay, so why did we do that? The point is to knock out these small fractions. Okay, we're going to clear those small fractions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this expression and we're going to distribute it because it's subtraction right here. So I'm going to have this once right there and then this again right there upon distribution. Let's write in a little arrow to indicate that we're doing distribution. So once gets multiplied there and then once gets multiplied here. Okay, so this ends up being, well, that numerator, so 3a plus 3h divided by a plus h minus 1. Okay, that whole thing is going to get multiplied by this. So a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1, all divided by 1. Okay, that's the first part. That's the first distribution, or the first part of the distribution. And then minus this quantity. So 3a divided by a minus 1 times it again, a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1, and then all divided by 1. Okay? And then in the denominator, you have this multiplied by these. Now, it turns out that the best thing you can do is not multiply out in the denominator. And the reason is because a lot of times what happens is you get some cancellation, and cancellation only occurs if you have multiplication. So we're going to leave the denominator in factored form as h times a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. Okay, and we get some cancellation now in the numerator, which was the whole point of doing this. The factor of a plus h minus 1 cancels with this a plus h minus 1. So those cancel. And we're also going to have cancellation over here, right? Because the a minus 1 cancels with this a minus 1. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to multiply this 3a plus 3h by that a minus 1. Now it's a polynomial multiplied by a polynomial, so you have to distribute. So it's going to be 3a times a, 3a times negative 1, and then same thing with 3h. So we're going to get, let's see, 3a squared minus 3a, and then now here comes a 3h. So it's going to be plus 3, let's write it 3ah, and then minus 3h. Okay, then this subtraction, we're going to be multiplying 3a by a plus h minus 1. Let's distribute the negative with the 3a. So it won't just be 3a squared, it'll be negative 3a squared to begin with. So negative 3a squared. And then negative 3a times h is minus 3ah, and negative 3a times negative 1 is positive 3a. And then all divided by the factored denominator, which is h times a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. Okay, now we get a little cancellation. So this is the fun part. 3a squared cancels with negative 3a squared. Let's see, any more cancellation? Yeah, we have the negative 3a and the positive 3a. And let's see, we also have the 3ah canceling with the negative 3h. So quite a bit, right? And so we're left with negative 3h in the numerator. And in the denominator, it's going to be h times a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. And then we can cancel, right? And that's the advantage of leaving this factored, is that you hope that at the end of the problem you can do a little cancellation, and here we can. The h's cancel, and we end up with just negative 3 divided by, it's going to be a plus h minus 1 times a minus 1. Okay, and that's the end of the road for the problem. This is our difference quotient simplified for this problem. Okay, like I was saying, the difference quotient is going to be very important to us in calculus, so we want to practice it quite a bit in pre-calc. Okay, until next time.